Hello, everybody. Welcome back to General Science. And today we're going to talk about chemical reactions and actually chemical equations. Now, chemical equations are basically just like a sentence that describes a chemical process. So here we have a chemical equation. We've got two chemicals being combined and then two chemicals coming out after the reaction. So this is how a chemical equation is written. On the left side, there's always reactants. Those are the things that you're going to start off with. You always separate them by a plus. In the middle, you have an arrow because that signifies that there's a reaction taking place. You're going from the reactants over to the right side, which is the products. So as you can see here, we've got our new products over here. They're different than our reactants because there's a chemical change. And now we've got a new chemical at the end. Okay? So that's the general idea of a chemical reaction. One important part about chemical reactions is that they must be balanced, and that means that there needs to be the same amount of each element on both sides of the reaction here. So as you look at this right now, you can see that there's two C's on the reactant side and only one C on the right side, so that's not a balanced equation. So how do we balance these things? Well, we can't change the formula of any of these elements or compounds because those are what they are. We can't change those. That would be changing reality. But what we can do is change how much of each one of these things is there. And we do that by putting a coefficient in front of one of the chemicals. So we're going to quickly balance this equation here so you can see how it's done. And then you'll have an example moving forward. So the first thing I like to do in balancing equations is just pick an element to balance. It's pretty simple to do. And we're going to start with the C's, because as you can see here, there's two C's over here, and there's only one here. So what we do is we put a coefficient in front of the CO2, and that's just a number. So I'll put a 2 there. And now there are two C's on the product side and two C's on the reactant side. See, this one has two C's in this formula. And now there's two CO2s, so there's two C's on each side. Fantastic. Now the next thing we can do is we can take a look at the H's. If we count over here, we've got 5 plus 1, that's 6, and there's 2 over here. So what we're going to need to do is multiply this H2O by 3. Now there's 3 times 2, that's 6. And there's 5 plus 1, which is 6. So now we have the same amount of H's on each side as well. That part is balanced. Now the final part that we need to work on is the O's. On the reactant side, we have 3. 1, 3. And on the product side, we have 4, 2 times 2, and 3, so 7 total. So we need to make sure that there's 7 over here. And we can do that by putting a 3 in front of the O2. Now there's 6 plus 1, which is 7, and 4 plus 3, which is 7. So they have the same amount on each side, right? We've got 2 C's, 7 O's, and 6 H's on both sides. So as you can see here, this is balanced because it has the same amount of each element on both sides of the equation. That means it's balanced. As you practice more and more, you'll get to the point where you can even predict the products based on the reactants, or vice versa. Here are 2 examples of that. So here, in our first one, we've got NaCl, which we know is just table salt, and hydrofluoric acid, which is HF. Okay? Now, looking at this, because of the knowledge I have and how much I've been able to do that, I know that this is a double replacement reaction, which is one of the reactions we talked about earlier on in an earlier video. That means that the Na is going to end up with the F, and the H is going to end up with the Cl. So I can tell that my products are going to be HCl and NaF. And I know that that's balanced. Okay? And that's just because of my years of practice I've had doing this. If you're just starting out, it's going to take a while for you to get to this level where you can do this sort of thing. But if you practice enough, you'll figure it out. The next one down here, I can tell this is a combustion reaction. It's a hydrocarbon, something with C's and H's in it, and it's reacting with oxygen, so I know that's a combustion reaction. CH4 is methane. That's the stuff that cows fart a lot. Then we've got oxygen, right? Oxygen's in the atmosphere. When you combine a hydrocarbon and oxygen with some heat, you get two products always. And I know that, and that is CO2, carbon dioxide, and water. Okay? Similar reactions happen in cars when you burn gasoline, except the C's and H's are a lot different in gasoline than they are in methane. And I know that this is also, it's not quite balanced yet. Let's take a look here. There we go. Now it's balanced. So now that one's balanced, it's got 4 O's, 4 H's, and 1 C on each side. So there you go. We were able to predict those products based on our general knowledge. And that's just because I've had a lot of practice, but as you practice more, you'll also be able to figure this out. Here I am. So remember, make sure you're practicing when you're trying to learn how to do this. Do as many as you can, and eventually you will be just as good as I am necessarily at this, which is something that if you're going to do chemistry is pretty important. Otherwise, just something good to know. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time for some more chemistry.